One Piece, episode 1066, also known as the episode where Eustace Kid single-handedly defeated Big Mom. You know, okay, Law was there too. Law helped out a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, honestly, Law was more of just like Eustace's like water boy in this episode, you know what I mean? Like, Eustace is out there, he's putting in the hard yards, he's like, yeah, bring it on, Big Mom, and then he's like, takes a little break, and he backs up, and you know, it's like they ring the bell, and it's just like Law comes up with a towel and some G Fuel, and it's just like, oh, you're doing great out there, kid, you're doing great out there. He's like, shut up, I know it. It's like, give me that towel, Trafalgar. He's like, oh my god, Eustace, you're so incredible. I wish one day I could be a pirate like you. And Eustace is like, you never will be, but I admire your admiration. And then he's like, all right, now you get out there and finish her off. Like, okay. Now, it was a joint effort. It was a joint effort, ladies and gentlemen. I remember when this chapter came out, it was really divisive. There was a lot of arguments of like, okay, all right, yeah. Eustace Kid and Trafalgar Law both took down Big Mom. But which one of them did more of the work here, all right? Which one put in more effort, all right? And at the time, I obviously went with Law because I like Law, but also the fact that Law was the one that actually created the hole. Like, you cannot underestimate how integral that hole was to defeating Big Mom. In fact, you know what? Just for this video, I'm going to bring back the hole. Just prepare yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my god, it's been so long. The hole. Okay, there it is. Oh my god, there's two holes now. One of them shaped like Luffy. Oh man, okay. Well, anyway, yeah, so Law generated the hole with his puncture vile. So I'm like, all right, you know, that hole, if it wasn't for that, Big Mom probably could have just gotten back up and just, you know, went back up to Onigashima, you know? But in this episode, we focus a lot on Kid. Like, this episode starts off with an extremely dramatic moment, and I love this scene where there's, like, almost no dialogue. It's like Kid off to the side, just bleeding. And I love this. They did a thing where they like took a scene from later in the episode at the beginning of an episode, and I love that. It's like timelines are kind of like skewed here. It's like we're gonna start the episode at the end of the episode, and then we're gonna do the title card, and then we're gonna lead back to where we left off last time, and it all leads up to where the beginning of the episode started, okay? And maybe a reason for that is this episode's director, because this is the landmark thing I was talking about, because the director of this episode was a man named Henry Thurlow. Here he is right here, and you could go check out his Twitter down below in the description. I'll leave a link to that, and I would highly suggest you give him a follow, because obviously he's the director of the episode. He can give way more insight into what everything went into this. Now, Henry is this is a big deal because he is the first foreign director of a One Piece episode. He's from the United States, moved to Japan, lives there currently. I believe he started a full-time job with Toei Animation in 2021, and he's worked on some other episodes. I believe he was a storyboard artist for it was 1017, 1018. It was one of the episodes where Luffy, Zoro, Kid, Law, Killer, and a Kid were all fighting against Kaido and Big Mom on the rooftop. So he worked on that, worked on some other episodes, but this was the first one. This was like his baby, I can imagine, where he's been working on this episode, and he was really, you know, just like, oh, okay, this is the big one. This is episode 1066, and so I think you did a fantastic job, Henry, if you're seeing this. Also, check out his Twitter, just because this isn't just a one-person thing. Obviously, there was a lot of people that worked on various scenes of animation in this episode, and he retweets and mentions all of that on his Twitter, so just go check that out for more insight there. Also, for the anime team on the episode itself, we have Nagisa Nishida in charge of art, Masahiro Kitazaki in charge of animation, and Akiko Inoue in charge of the screenplay. And I've definitely heard her name before. She's a screenwriter for a couple of other One Piece episodes as well. I've definitely seen Akiko's Inoue's name before. So this is a pretty 5-star team, if I have to say so myself, okay? So, couple of things what makes this episode unique. So definitely, let's talk about that opening shot, all right? That opening shot was a big deal, okay? So we have an opening shot of Kid. Just, we don't see his face initially. It's just various parts of his body, and he's bleeding. But he's bleeding purple. He's bleeding raspberry jam or grape jelly or whatever. But no, this is part of a thing in the episode that we'll get into later, but they mess with the hue a lot here in a kind of JoJo-esque fashion. If you've ever seen the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Anime, especially with parts 1 and 2, do this a lot. They kind of all do this, but then in part 4 also does it a lot in Morio, where they'll just change the hue of characters and things. And I really like that style of animation. I think it's kind of unique, okay? And so they do that a lot in this episode here, where characters' hues will change and the color palette will switch up, and it's a really neat thing. So Kid's there. He's not saying anything. He's just like, gasping for breath, just like, ugh. He's clearly just gotten a huge attack. He's just tanked something big, but we don't know what yet. I mean, if you've read the manga, you know what yet, but you don't know yet. And he's there, and he begins to reminisce about his past. And the way the episode handles Eustace reminiscing is so unique. It's not a simple kind of flashback where Eustace just kind of like, he like passes out for a moment, and then you just have a scene with him running around the island on the South Blue, and then he's playing with his friend Killer, and you see his crush Victoria. It's like nothing like that. No, they do this black and white still frame. Okay, it's animation, but it's a different kind of animation. I don't know how to explain. Okay. This is how you can do it. This is going to be really low tech, but this is the best way for me to describe it, all right? So just picture this as like the background of a shot, all right? And then this is like the foreground, okay? So you basically take two images, like you draw two separate images, you layer them on top of each other, and then you just kind of move them, all right? Now, this is like a very low-tech way to animate a shot, but if you use it in a clever way, which this does, it's very powerful. So it's a black and white background, and then you'll have the characters drawn in the foreground, and then just kind of move them slightly, okay? And so the first shot is Kid, as a kid, in the junk heap that he grew up in the South Blue, tinkering with something, okay? Now, this was something that we saw earlier. Oda had already drawn Kid as a little kid growing up in the South Blue along with all the other supernovas, right? But we get to see that there. We get to see Eustace along with Killer, Wire, and Heat. The backstory that we got in the SBS was that they were basically gang leaders in various sectors of their island, and there was like the actual corrupt island like masters that ruled over everything, okay? And so one day, essentially, Kid, Killer, Wire, and Heat all put aside their differences, worked together, and defeated, like toppled the overlord of the island. But the actual people that ruled the island, the big gang, they actually ended up killing Victoria, who was Kid and Killer's like childhood crush. All right, so that's why the Victoria Punk is named after her, okay? So we get a few different shots of stuff that's already happened in the anime. We get a shot of Luffy, Law, and Kid at Sabaody. We get a shot. Here's something a lot of people might forget about. Kid and Killer were present. They were watching the demonstration of the Shinokuni, the Island of Death, the Nation of Death gas that Caesar demonstrated at Punk Hazard. Like, they weren't on the island, but they were observing it. They were one of those, like, underworld brokers that were observing the weapon. You're like, for your consideration, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to purchase this fine product from Caesar Clown Industries. They were there observing that, okay? We also have the shot, of course, when they were forming the alliance with Hawkins and Apu. Obviously, Apu was a double agent there. Then Kaido crashing down and everything. We see a shot of Kid and Luffy, like, in the prison. It's that kind of stuff. And it also probably indicates the fact that Kid, he just took a big hit in the face. He has maybe a couple of concussions right now. Can you even have more than one concussion at once? Whatever. Kid does. And so he's there, and he's just like kind of reeling, and the fact that maybe his memories are in black and white, he's just like, wait a second, yeah, I remember that. It's like, okay. So while this is going on, he's constructing something. So while he's there, just kind of like, you just see some kind of machine, like the various parts of a machine, like putting together, like wires connecting and electricity, static going off and electromagnetism happening, and then you see this skull face kind of light up a little bit, and then you hear a scene where Law is off screen, and he is just like, do it now, Eustace, yeah. And then, Kid is just like, oh, okay, you don't boss me around, but he gets moving, and then we seamlessly just move. It just screen cuts to black, and then we have the title of the episode. No music, nothing like that. The entire opening shot is pretty much just Eustace, just like, ugh. And then the scenes with his flashback, and then you hear Law off screen, and then he gets up and moves with this machine that he just built, and then cut to black, and then fade into the episode title. and then we cut back, and then we resume where we left off last time. That was an amazing way. That was such a powerful way to open up an episode, okay? And that is, once again, something you don't really get too often in One Piece. This is 1066. There's a lot of episodes up until now, a lot of different directors, a lot of different people, screenplay, blah, 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 over the years have tackled One Piece to add their own little bit of flair to it, to add a little bit of, uniqueness to these episodes, of individuality, because there's a lot of them, okay, while still maintaining true to the source material, to the manga, okay? And I think that was one way to just lead into this episode, like, listen, this is the final battle between Big Mom, Kid, and Law. This is it. All right, Big Mom's going to get shoved down the hole at the end of this episode, and the fight is effectively over at that point. This is a big deal. Something that when I was reading the manga, I got to be honest with you about, it was a dramatic fight, but, in the fight with the manga, I don't know, it felt like, I just felt like this episode did a better job of showcasing the terror of Big Mom. Just how big she is, how she literally has made herself even bigger now, and she's just looming over everyone. She is a kaiju. She is a monster, okay? Truly. And she is just emanating this presence of, like, no matter how many times you hit this woman, no matter how many times Kid generates a giant metal arm and just pummels the crap out of Big Mom's face. That was a scene in this episode. I love that. There's a scene where Law is being really clever and tactical, and he's using his op fruit, and he's like flinging pebbles around the battlefield, and he's zipping around and teleporting and cutting up Big Mom. And that's immediately followed up with Kid just with his giant here comes the giant metal fist. Boom, boom, boom. Go down, lady. Go down. Go down. Just like pummeling the crap out of Big Mom's face. Like, why won't you die? Like that alone, I was laughing my ass off, because it just shows a level of just, number one, exhaustion. It shows a level, it's like when you're playing a video game. It really does. I saw a couple of comments that were like, man, you really made, like, Henry really made this episode feel like a raid boss in a video game. And dude, that encapsulates it perfectly. Okay, that really does. Because you ever do that? You ever play in a video game where there's this crazy powerful boss and you've tried to fight him like 40 times and you die every single time, but you learn a little bit more each time, and then you get his health bar all the way down into the red, and you're just like, come on, die, come on. That's really the level of just desperation you feel from Lawn Kid in this entire episode, where they are almost done. The gas is pretty low in their tanks, and they're just like, come on. There's even a scene where, this happens in the manga, but there's a scene where, Law goes up to Kid and just like, hey, I'm just letting you know, next attack, that's it, I'm done. I don't have anything else left. And so Kid is just like, shut up, either do I. And so it's like, okay, well, let's just make sure we bring her down with the next move, okay? So after the title card, I have to back up a little bit here. I'm already getting into it, okay? So after the title card, we have a little bit of some other scenes. We have a scene with Yamato, touching base with Yamato and the Kanzenbo, and that is, approaching the bombs and everything. So Yamato's there and just like, okay, I need to defeat this thing. And so that fight resumes. Then we have a scene with Momonosuke in dragon form continuing to pull the island Onigashima away from the flower capital. We also have the similar thing with the animation at the flower capital, except this is in color, obviously, where you'll have the various citizens of the flower capital, like, at the fire festival, like, oh, there's insane battle going on in the sky, but we don't notice, have a candy apple, you know what I mean? That's how that goes there. We also have some really cool, there's a reference here I'm sure a lot of people caught, but I'll bring it up anyway. So Momonosuke is pulling the island away, and of course he has to think of everything that's motivating him, like the reason why he needs to succeed, okay? And so to kind of like stifle his fear a little bit, to just like, okay, this is the reason why I have to do this, not that I have to try, no, I have to do this, okay? And so he thinks of the scabbards, he thinks of Kinemon and Kawamatsu and Denjiro and everybody fighting against Kaido and all their individual battles and how they got beat down and everything like that. He thinks of Shinobu when Shinobu was trying to make sure Momonosuke was safe, during most of the battle and everything. They had to get out of there. And he also thinks of Hiyori. Momonosuke is remembering his sister, as well as his father, Odin, and his mother, Toki, when they were still a happy family, 20 years ago, okay? And so you see these shots that are direct parodies, direct references to the eye catches of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. Remember those old eye catches? Way back in the day, in the original Dragon Ball, there was the scene where Oolong was like twirling the umbrella and they were throwing the Dragon Balls on the umbrella like da 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 da, you know, those things. So they do a parody of that. There's a reference with that, with Hiyori twirling the umbrella. There's a scene with Hiyori looking at the camera and then running over to Odin. That's a shot directly from Dragon Ball Z with Gohan and Goku. And then there was one more. There was a shot with okay, wait, no, it was I think that's just the shot where like in the actual series, it's Gohan running over to Goku, and then Goku just picks him up, and they just you know, like wave at the camera, and that was it. So they do that too. So that was a really cool reference. I really like that, you know, parodying, referencing stuff from Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z. That always does it for me 100%. So that's on Momonosuke's, you know, task right now to pull Onigashima away, all right? So we move back to the fight. So Kid has created his giant metal bowl to slam into Big Mom, and she grabs it. She grabs the bowl by the horns, as it were, and then she's just like, "Oh, you can't possibly defeat me." And then you see a shot at Kid, and his eyes are just glowing, like he's entered the Avatar state or some shit. And she's like, "Oh, just go down already." And then he just adds a little bit more horsepower, adds a little bit more gas to it, you know. And then boom, runs Big Mom over, slams her into a wall, and she's like, ugh. And of course, everybody's cheering. You know, Kid's crew is there, all cheering. We get to see a few new members of Kid's crew. We see Quincy. We see Papa's. We see who was the other one? Hip. Hip is there, and I'll put the names up right there of all their different names. I think some of them we've seen before, some of them we haven't. But Kid's crew was also revealed in an SBS, so now it's nice that we're seeing most of them animated. I hope we get to see a lot of them animated by the end of Wano, just in the random background shots. That'd be really fun. So they're there, and they're all cheering on for Kid. Just like, yeah! And then Law shows up, and Law is just like, hey, you know, that's the second time now. You know, I attacked her first. I did the shock ville and everything, and I did most of the damage. But then you showed up out of nowhere and created a giant metal bowl, and you stole all my thunder. Because you gotta be honest, like, Law's abilities are really cool. Everybody loves Law, all right? I did a whole week of videos based on him, okay? Everybody loves Law, and Room and the Op Fruit, that's a really cool ability. But when it comes to, like, as Buggy would say, flashiness, you got Kid, because Kid literally makes a giant metal bowl that just runs Big Mom over. Like, you know, just the idea of, like, remember the scene when Frankie rode in on the FRU-4 and just ran over Big Mom's face? Like, that shit's awesome. I gotta be honest with you. Like, anybody says Captain Mid or whatever, it's like, Kid can make a giant metal bowl to literally run Big Mom over. Kid can make a giant, like, robot to, like, smash, like, a trash compactor. Like, that's cool. That adds some flair to it. I'm just saying, okay? So, Big Mom gets smashed into a wall, but she's not out yet. Of course not. She's Big Mom. That really gives you the idea, and I love the way this is more of, like, Oda's decision here, that even despite all the damage she's taken, and even after Big Mom falls in the hole, Oda makes it very abundantly clear that, like, she's probably not dead. We're going to be seeing her again. Like, when Big Mom's even falling down in the hole, she's like, don't you think for a moment this is going to kill me? And I think even us as the fans are like, no, that tracks. Yeah, that's not going to kill her. But it's going to take her out for a while. Okay, that's the idea right now. Like, I don't think Big Mom or Kaido are dead, but we'll see what happens. So, it gets slammed into the wall. She breaks her arm. It's, like, broken at, like, 90-degree angles, right? This is expanded on a little bit more in the anime where, so Big Mom uses her soul powers to give life to her bones, her individual broken, fragmented, compound, fractured bones. And then the bones become homies, and then they heal her. And the way they heal her, I don't think was actually shown in the manga. I don't think it was actually even shown the bones, like, getting eyes and mouths and, like, yes, mama! You know, nothing like that. She just kind of takes her soul power, adds it to her arm, and then it just kind of cracks back into place. Here we see it. We see the bones growing eyes and mouths just like the homies do, and then they like, yes, mama, we'll heal you, and then like spikes like protrude from the bones to like brace Big Mom's body. And you know what? I saw that scene, and I'm like, why does that make me, that reminds me of something. That reminds me of something that I've read recently. And I'm thinking about it for a moment, and you know what that reminds me of? I just finished reading all of Berserk. That is kind of similar to Guts's Berserk armor, where Guts puts on the Berserk armor, and even after he breaks a leg, the armor will literally impale his flesh with these metal spikes to, like, you know, support his bone structures and get him back to, like, properly standing up, right? And so, like, Guts's arm could be bent like this, and then the armor will just like force it back this way. That's kind of what it reminded me of a little bit. So I don't know if that was the reference or whatever, but it's painful, but at the same time gives you an air of just how unstoppable Big Mom is. Like, even if you break an arm, she can just heal it like that. I mean, it takes up her life force, but she's got a lot of that. So it's kind of like, all right. Okay, so Big Mom then proceeds to take all of her three main homies. We have Prometheus, we have Napoleon, and we have Hera, her new homie that replaced Zeus, okay? And so she uses all three of them and combines them together on Napoleon to make the Mazer Saber, which is a sword of Prometheus and Hera and Napoleon all together, formed like a laser. She has a lightsaber. Big Mom has a lightsaber now, okay? And it's really devastating, and she takes this sword, and she just slices Punk Cornadillo, the metal bowl, just slices it right in half, okay? But they're like, okay, that we can still do something with that, though, because Kid's ability is like, you know, it's the Jiki no Mi, it's the magnet fruit. So it's like, even if you cut apart the metal bowl, it's not like it's gone forever. It's all scrap metal to begin with. I can just paste it back together because that's what my power is, right? So he uses a sign, which is his awakening, to add the north polarity to a wall and then the south polarity to Big Mom. Big Mom gets gets stuck to the wall, and then he takes the upper half of Punk Cornadillo that he, you know, was spliced in half, and he's just like, okay, I'm just going to charge it right at you. And then Big Mom is so strong, she literally just lifts up the tower that she was attached to, swings around, and then boom, blocks the Punk Cornadillo that way, okay? And now, I mean, this really just moves on to various melee scenes. Now, some of this stuff was in the manga and just added upon more here, and some of the stuff was added in. But once again, it's very important this was added in because, like I said, in the chapter, I'm not going to say it felt rushed. It didn't. It's just that with the anime, it feels way more of, like, the scale of this battle is seen, okay? So we have a shot where Law, once again, he goes, like, right up to Big Mom and shoves the his sword Kikoku with K-Room, Chrome, and Anesthesia right through Big Mom's face, like right here through the bridge of her nose, out the back of her head, and then shock Villies her brain. Okay, so we see that shot. Then we see a shot where Big Mom grabs Law, goes to like pound him into the ground, and I love this shot in the animation here because as Big Mom holds Law, picks him up, and is about to shove him down to the ground and shove him through the ground, you can see the animation, I'll show it up here, where Law just blips out of existence right before Big Mom slams her hand down on the ground, okay? Now, this is also really, I love this shot here, this scene coming up. By the way, the music in the background's great here. It's almost like they went through the whole One Piece soundtrack library and picked out, like, the best of. A lot of these soundtracks, I mean, there's a lot of episodes of One Piece, okay? But a lot of the soundtracks I recognize from the movies in this episode, which, one of them was from movie 9, which was the Chopper movie, the retelling of Drum Island. And it's definitely been used in episodes of the anime before. Most notably, I remember it was used in episodes of Thriller Bark. But there's a really good soundtrack in that movie, and it's used here while Law's like jumping around the whole like battlefield and everything. So the way Law's ability works is it's not just freedom of teleportation, okay? He needs to swap places with something else, some other object, okay? So I really love the fact the episode, like, plays with that, where it's not just Law teleporting without anything. He literally, you know, jumps away from Big Mom, grabs a bunch of pebbles off the ground, and starts firing the pebbles around the battlefield, like, flicking them around, so then he could just change places with the pebbles, effectively being able to teleport around Big Mom. So he's like, oh, I'm in front of Big Mom, sliced, and now, oh, I'm behind her, now I'm next to her, now I'm on top of her, now I'm above her, you know, just moving around the whole battlefield and just slicing the crap out of Big Mom, and she has no idea what's going on. That was actually a really clever scene in the way, like, the tracking shots as it's pulling around the battlefield. It's such a fluid kind of animation. Honestly, there were times in this episode where it felt like the animation was, like, even at a higher frame rate, maybe, like, you know, like 60 FPS. I don't know if it really was, but there were just times where it just felt way more fluid, okay? So I really love that scene because it really showed, like, this is how Law's ability works. Like, they could have easily just had Law warp around the battlefield and that would have been it. But the fact they showed that scene really just honestly makes me think now that part of Law's training with his op fruit is throwing shit. Like, Law is an expert at throwing shit around a battlefield because he has to be, right? Like, I can imagine, like, Law is, like, training with Beppo, and Beppo just has, like, a cannon, and he's like, okay, Captain, I'll fire the cannon. And then Law just runs around the battlefield grabbing anything he can off the ground and just throwing it in random directions so he can teleport and avoid the cannon fire. You know, and Beppo's just standing there like, boom! He's like, oh, that was a good one, Captain! Boom! All right, that one almost hit you. All right, be careful. You know, like, that's how Law trains. He's good at throwing shit. All right. So that was that scene. And then, as I said earlier, we have the shot now. We have the scene where right after Law is being all tactical, jumping around the battlefield, using the op fruit, teleporting, twirling his sword, making sure Big Mom can't even, you know, realize where he is to counterattack. That's when Kid just shows up and just, you know, just cuts out all the fanciness and just takes out his big metal fist and just boom, 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 and just slaps the crap out of Big Mom and then punches her in the face like 10 times and just like over and over again like a piston just firing off. Okay, so and then that's a great scene. I was laughing my ass off at that scene. That was great. Okay, because it really just lent to that desperation of just like, please go down, you know, please stop, please let this fight be over. So then Big Mom has her like rage moment, her kind of like snapped moment where it's like, okay, I'm done with this. So just, you know, just like pushes both of them away. And she enters like this is the moment, like if this was a raid boss in a video game, this is the moment where you hit the final marker on the health bar. This is the moment where she's in the red and she's going into her final form now. Okay, this is that, all right? You've made it all the way through her 6 other, you know, different levels or transformations. Now you reach the final one, all right? So Big Mom uses Misery. Okay, so the 3,000 Leagues in Search of Mother, which is actually a reference to an old anime from the 70s, which is, I think, based off of an Italian storybook about a little kid that wants to travel from Italy to Argentina to find his mother who's, like, sick. And so it's like an adventure, like, let's go. He has, like, a pet dog, and it's like, let's go, boy. Let's go find my mom on the other side of the planet. And it turns into this, like, demon, like, eldritch. Like, do you ever see Mob Psycho, the episode with the crawler, the dragger? You know, it's like, not the crawler. Yeah, it was the dragger in that episode. You know, that, like, creepy, spooky, creepypasta lady. Kind of looked like Sadako from the Ring. That's kind of what Misery is, okay? Also, I this is probably not the reference. I don't know if Oda made this reference as well. But Misery also, as in the Stephen King book and the movie adaptation with Kathy Bates, which I'm a big fan of, that also could kind of work here as a pun. All right, but anyway, so Misery is the combination, it seems, of all of Big Mom's, like, her 3 main homies, Hera, Prometheus, and Napoleon together. So it's like they were part of the lightsaber, the Mazer Saber, and then they all form together, like, and this, like, demon appears in, like, Big Mom's eyes as she's, like, summoning this thing, and it looks like this. You know, this is the thing that makes it look like Sadako for a moment there, like this appearance, right? And so it takes the form of this lady that also speaks in both Hera and Prometheus's voice, as, like, layered on top of each other, so it's really creepy. Now, Napoleon, we still see a shot of Napoleon, like, animated, like Big Mom's holding on to Napoleon, so maybe he doesn't have too much of a work here, but, like, maybe it's mostly just Hera and Prometheus fusing together. This is certainly Big Mom's strongest attack with her 3 homies. That's basically her support, okay? So then she creates those. She has other attacks that are really strong. I'm not saying this is Big Mom's, like, ultimate strongest attack, but it's just with, you know, Hera and Prometheus and Napoleon. This is their strongest form, and she definitely doesn't use this lightly. She didn't use this at all during Totland, so the idea is, like, you know, the fact you are getting her down, her health in the red this bad, really just speaks volumes of the fact of how pissed off Big Mom is. And she is getting weaker. They are slowly but surely shaving away that health bar, okay? So Misery pops out, and this is Kid's just looking at it, and this is where a lot of the color hues change. And so Kid's just looking at it, and he's just like, oh boy, we're not even done yet, aren't we? We just got her down into the red bar. We still have a whole form left to fight. And then Misery just proceeds to just pummel the crap out of Kid. Like electricity and fire, and electricity and fire. And just, you know, this is the wound that he takes at the beginning of the episode. So he's down, and he's just like, oh, and he just collapses, okay? And then it's up to Law to kind of, like, buy enough time for Kid to get back up and create his final attack, okay? So Law then proceeds to take Kikoku, go into anesthesia with Karome, and then stab Big Mom again. First of all, he drops a whole building on her. Oh yeah, there's that scene too. All right, I don't even know how to describe this sound effect. You know how, like, in movie trailers, right when the big moment happens, there's, like, the boom kind of, like, drop scene? It's kind of like that, where the giant tower, you know, Law picks it up with his op fruit, and then Big Mom just kind of looks up at it, and she's like, don't you dare drop that on me. Tact! Boom! You know, it's like a trailer sound effect drops on Big Mom, knocks her to the ground, and so that's when Law takes, you know, his awakening, stabs Big Mom right in the chest, and then activates the extendo blade ability of Kikoku, and then it extends the blade straight down through Big Mom's body, through Onigashima. It goes right down through the basement into the armory where Yamato's fighting the Kanzabo, and so Yamato's fighting the Kanzabo and just like, what's that thing, huh? And then it just keeps going, and it's like this cool tracking shot that goes all the way down past Onigashima, hits the ground of Wano, begins to burrow in the ground. We see the shots of the Fire Festival in the background, and everyone's just having a fun time, and you see this thing in the background. Like, how do you guys not see this thing happening? But like, whatever, you're having a fun time, that's all that matters, okay? So it creates this, you know, like extended blade that goes all the way down to Wano. And, you know, at the same time, Big Mom creates armament hockey, like the vulcanization, like the hardening on her fists, and begins to just pummel the crap out of Law. This is extended a lot than in the manga. In the manga, it was like one panel of like just Big Mom, like it was implied Big Mom was going ham on Law. But in the episode, you see it from a whole other perspective where he's really getting the crap beat out of him, and he's still just holding on to his blade and just focusing like, no, gotta go deeper. And so something to bring up, though. Big Mom is using, like, the vulcanization hockey. She's using the kind of, like, armament hockey that, like, Luffy used, like, as soon as after the time skip, right? This is, like, the lowest kind of level of armament hockey that she's using, which makes me think that she's really running out of steam here. Like, she used a lot of her power in all these fights. I mean, she fought against everybody on the roof, and then she fought against Kid and Law, and this has been going on for a while at this point, and they've really brought her to the end of her ropes, and now she brought out Misery, which that definitely has to be taxing to bring out something like that, and so this is all happening. Big Mom might be literally running out of hockey here. I mean, she has a massive reserve of it, but you can run out of it. It's not infinite, okay? And so after all the fights that she's been in, really, really draining her, so all she can really muster is, like, basic level vulcanization hockey, and she's just pummeling the crap out of Kid, like, I mean, out of Law. Law takes probably, like, several dozen hits from Big Mom here, and he's just holding on, just trying to, for dear life, okay? Now, also, I don't think this was shown in the manga. The actual scene of, like, what Law was going for, like, in the manga, I think Law was just, like, has to go deeper. We're not quite there yet. In the anime, it actually shows, like, what Law was really aiming for, and you could assume. Law had the plan of the whole, like, okay, I am plunging my sword all the way down into Wano, and I'm not stopping until I hit magma, okay? And so he keeps going and going, and he finally hits the magma, because Law knows there's a volcano on the island. So, like, there's got to be a magma pool under there somewhere, because he's a smart guy. So he's like, you see Kikoku reach the magma chamber, and then that's when Law's like, yep, it's right there. And so then that's the moment where he activates Puncture Ville, and it punches a giant hole, the hole, into mainland Wano. And then he backs off, and then he's just like, do it now, Eustace! And that's when it cuts back to the beginning of the episode where Kid creates the giant railgun, okay? And this railgun is huge. I don't know what it's made out of. It's certainly scientific, though. I can say that much. And he pulls it out of the ground, and then, you know, he says one more quip to Law. He's just like, Trafalgar, I told you, you don't boss me around. And Big Mom's there, like, she almost falls down the hole, and she's, like, holding on for dear life. She's like, what just happened? And so that's when Kid generates the damned punk railgun, and he's like, I'm bringing you down. And he just launches the attack, and it just gets hit. And Big Mom's not going down. Like, she's holding on for dear life, perched over this hole, and then, you know, like Kid comes in screaming like the god of damn war. He's just like, ah! You know, and he's like, I'm bringing you down, lady! Damned punk! And then he fires the blast. Also, the soundtrack in the background. So, I don't know if this started in the anime or in Stampede. I think it was first used in Stampede. I think it's a Stampede soundtrack. It's used a lot for Kid, but in the movie, I'll always remember it as the soundtrack that plays as Bullet is coming out and just curb stomping the entire Worst Generation, where he comes out and he's just like, power, speed, endurance. I find you lacking in so many areas. And then he just proceeds to just beat all of them down multiple times, okay? And so that soundtrack's like, it like is playing in the background, and that works great for Kid as well, as he's summoning up this railgun and it's slowly charging up like, and then it reaches its apex there and it's firing off purple lightning everywhere, and then Kid just fires the blast, and then that's the end of the episode. And then boom, we even get a special to be continued with the lightning firing, the electromagnet firing off of it, or whatever, the purple lightning, and then that's it. That's the end of the episode. Oh my god. And you know what, some people were complaining that it's like, oh man, we didn't get to see Big Mom fall in the hole in this episode. I'm like, that's where the chapter ended. The chapter of, I think it was chapter 1039, ends with that exact shot of the cannon hitting her, okay? So that's a perfect place to end the episode. That's awesome, all right? It's perfect right there at the cliffhanger of the episode, cliffhanger of the manga chapter. There it is. So yeah, that was that. That was that episode. That was a joyride. I think I mentioned most of the stuff. Like I said, the way they messed with the hue was really clever. The animation fluidity at certain points seemed really high level. And also just the way they began the episode with the flashbacks, I think was handled very well. I appreciated the references to the Dragon Ball cutaways. Those were the eye catches. Those were really good. Just everybody that worked on this episode, everybody, great job, fantastic job. Like I said, go check out Henry's Twitter. He has a little bit more, like a lot more insight on these episodes and stuff that he was very, very proud of, and I think also a little nervous on how the episode turned out. So go let him know if you appreciated this episode. Go let him know. And so yeah, that was that, man. That was a really good one. That was a joyride. I was waiting for this episode for a while. You know, going into Wano, it's like, okay, I'm waiting for the episode where Sanji beats Queen. I'm waiting for the episode where Zoro fights King, and I'm waiting also for the episode, obviously, where Kid and Law defeat Big Mom finally, and then the episode, the next one I think we're all really excited for is the episode where Luffy is now getting to fight against Kaido, and that's going to be the other highlight there. I mean, we have other stuff happening in Wano, but I think that's going to be the last highlight of Wano, is going to be how they handle that fight, and it's particularly the animation, because we all know how the animation goes in that fight of Luffy's new ability, and so we'll see how that pans out with Gear 5th. But anyway, thanks for watching, everybody, and yeah, this will be Tekking 101 signing out. Fantastic episode. Now I have to go deal with, oh no, how do I pick up the carpet? Oh, that's going to be difficult now. All right, well anyway, thanks for watching. Tekking signing out.